Hi, Sierra. How you doing?
How are you?
Hey, pretty good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Statistics Solutions webinar on surviving your dissertation. We do have a co-host on, Sierra, and she has posted some links for you where you can schedule a consultation with us if you're interested in just finding out more about our services, and where you can find resources on our website, including this webinar and other webinars and other resources, and any kind of questions you might have going as we go along that are technical in nature that don't relate to the content of what we're talking about. Sarah will be able to help you. Also, about questions about the topic after we're done, we'll have a question and answer session at the end. If you want to put your questions in the question and answer box or the web or the chat box as we go along, so you don't forget them, that's fine. But we'll just get to them at the end. Okay, so this webinar is on surviving your dissertation. So it's kind of a practical guide to a kind of a general practical guide to help you get through to the end. It's not, it doesn't focus specifically on any chapters or any specific components of the dissertation. It's more of just kind of like, staying focused, perseverance, the kind of, the intangible things that sometimes we don't talk about too much, just kind of, sticking it out and, making sure you do the things you need to do to get done and understand what you need to do to get there. So again, we do offer webinars specifically on specific chapters, chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, specific set, topics, methodologies. So if you want a more kind of nuts and bolts stuff about what actually goes on the chapters, we have webinars on those. Again, this is just kind of a general practical, advice to help you kind of get through. Okay. Surviving your dissertation. Here's the things we're going to be covering today. You can see those. I won't read them to you, but we'll be covering each one of those in the discussion today. Okay. So choosing a topic. Now the webinar is going to focus on things that maybe you're at the beginning, maybe you're in the middle, I don't know, but some things may apply to you, they may not. But if they do, if you're at the beginning, choosing a topic, I mean, real important, something that, people sometimes struggle with. And it's understandable. You may not have a clear understanding what you want to do or how to do it, or, how to go, or you do have an idea, but you don't know how to kind of, focus it and get it narrow. So usually people start with something that they're interested in, and that is intuitive, right? And it makes sense. But it comes with a caveat, personal interest is a good starting point, right? But as you know, or may or may not know, the dissertation usually has to proceed from a research problem. There's different kinds of dissertations. Sometimes there's a business dissertation might proceed from a business problem. A project study or local study might proceed from a local problem. But most dissertations proceed from a research problem. And that's just like it sounds, there's an issue in the research, or a problem, or a gap, or something that's unresolved or inconclusive in the research. And hence we need more research on it to find out more about it. So that's a research problem. So if you start with interest, something you're interested in, that's fine, but it kind of doesn't end there. You can't just kind of rationalize doing a study based on something that you're simply interested in. Okay. But it's a starting point. Like I said, once you're interested in something, you need to go to the research, kind of see what's in the research, right? See what researchers have done on the topic you're interested in. That helps you to define the research problem, right? And to develop the research problem, which is what still needs to be done. What is the research lacking? Right. So if you're interested in something, good. But again, that's a first step. You go in. The next step is to dig into the literature to see what's there and what still needs to be done. And that will help kind of to help focus your interest and see if actually there's something in there that you can use as a research problem. Start searching for and thinking about a research problem, right? So yeah, so that's the next step, what I just said. If you're interested or you're drawn towards something, go to the research, because the answers about, what needs to be done in the research problem, they're in the research. And your study can't save the world. That's just to say that some people have big ideas, which is fine, but the study is a very focused investigation, right? It can't do all things, right? Its only purpose is to do the thing that is designed to do, right? Which it might be to study the relationship between two factors, or to explore some phenomenon, using interviews. It can't do everything. So just try to kind of keep the scope humble. And just remember that, a lot of people like to say the best dissertation is a done dissertation. So kind of at the beginning, you may be a little kind of enthusiastic, which is great. But again, just kind of keep your kind of perspective in line with what your study can actually do. Don't try to kind of do everything, save the world. Just focus on what your study needs to do. Okay. Also for topics, at some point you took content courses. Ideally, something like a dissertation, extended research problems, or extended research projects grow out of coursework, right? The stuff that you're interested in courses, or your content coursework. Sometimes, these research projects, are extensions of that, or grow out of your interest in that. So that's another place to go back to, stuff that you've been working on in your content courses. Also, your topic, when you get it focused down, make sure it aligns with your program or your discipline that you're in. I mean, I see this occasionally. Somebody will be in leadership, they're in a leadership school, but their study has nothing to do with leadership. And somebody comes along and says, hey, what does this have to do with leadership? And it happens. And sometimes people just get kind of really focused on something, and they don't kind of really see how it aligns with their discipline. So just make sure that it aligns with your discipline, so you don't kind of go down a path that you may have to, turn around and start again. All right. What is a study? I'm not trying to be cute here or glib. It's just really about the genre, the study as a genre. Know what a study is, right? Because it's different than work that you've done in courses, right? Like research papers or argumentative papers. And that may be what you're used to at the graduate level, and that's fine, because that's what you've been doing in courses. A study is something very specific, right? It's a focused, detailed investigation of a situation or phenomenon or subject or topic, right? And it has specific parts to it, introduction, a literature review, discussion of the methods you're going to use, a presentation of the results, and then a discussion of the results. So the study is it's a genre. It's its own category with its own features and characteristics. So just realize that it's not, and so the writing may be a little different than, say, if you're writing for a research paper, where you're just kind of making a case for something using research. So it's important to understand the components of the study, right? Not only the chapters that I just laid out, but kind of the sections too within the chapters, and how things fit together, right? For example, the literature review in chapter 2, you're going to have to use the literature review in chapter 5 again. When you discuss your results, you need to discuss them in relation to the previous literature. Therefore, you need to go back to chapter 2, where you've reviewed the previous literature, and use some of that and bring some of that into chapter 5. So there's relationships like that between the chapters. So it helps to kind of get your head around that, do a little research on, not only what a study is generally, but what your school is requiring, for these chapters and for these sections. Okay. to kind of get the big picture. Like I say, kind of to step back from, chapter by chapter and look at the thing as a whole to see how things fit together. And also the processes, right? The associated processes that go with the dissertation. You're going to usually have a proposal defense. The proposal is usually chapters 1 through 3. You usually defend that. And after you defend that, you usually go through something called IRB, which is the internal review board. They have a process that you have to go through and forms you have to fill out. And then there will be a final defense. And then there's usually a some kind of formatting check at the very end. So it's good to know not only the components, but also the processes that you're going to have to go through. So you don't have any, you can help manage your time. You can help you could have a timeline, because these processes will affect your timeline. And you won't have any surprises down the road. Okay. So really, and this goes in with the next topic, which is knowing what's required. Know what your school is looking for, right? Know what your school is requiring, either at the beginning or near the beginning. So it's always important. I talk to people sometimes, what is your school's template say about this chapter or about this? And they say, I'm not sure if my school has one. You need to know. I'm just going to put a point blank. You need to know if your school has a template, and if they have one, you need to obtain it, right? Because this is going to be, in addition to working closely with your chair, this is going to be what you're going to have to go back to guide you, right? Is the template. Usually there's a formatting template, how they want the thing formatted, but also usually there's template, on or guidelines, on the content, right? They're going to describe what goes into chapter 1, what goes into this section in chapter 1. So the template is really helpful and necessary, because that's what your people are going to, your professors are going to look at when they look at your work. How closely do you adhere to the template, right? So obtain the school's template to know what they're looking for, know what's required, familiarize yourself with the process. Like I said earlier, the dissertation process. Familiarize yourself with your role as a learner, and not only your role, but like your chair's role and your committee's role. Okay, and sometimes this includes turnaround times and the expectations of reviewers. So schools are different, and some schools may not have hard and fast rules, but they usually have guidelines or what to expect. If you turn something into your professor, you can expect, no more than 2 weeks, so all that's good to know ahead of time, or again, early in the process. All right, time management. We all know that time management is important to basically everything in life. And especially to getting things done, and especially getting things done as, big as a dissertation, it's going to take time management. And it's like anything else that you want to accomplish. If you want to get healthier, you go to the gym, you're doing some cardio, you're doing some strength work, you want to see results, you have to go to the gym. Right? You can't just say, hey, I got a gym membership. Well, have you been? I haven't been in a while. Right. If you want to tell your doctor you're making that progress, or even yourself, toward getting healthier, getting more in shape, whatever it is, losing weight, whatever it is, you have to go. You have to put in the time. The same thing with the dissertation, right? You want to produce pages, and you want to produce content, you have to put in the time. And life never takes a break. My second point here, and we know this too, right, is that there's always something going on. It's life. It's always like a little minor, emergency, or something that needs to be done ASAP, or just things that are always in your life that need to be done, right? That are always there. Life doesn't take a break. Right, so you're going to have to schedule time to work on your dissertation in your life. So that's why I say schedule routine work times and meet them. It's the best way to make consistent progress. I know some people like to, well, I have a holiday coming up. I'm going to devote this, most of this holiday time to get my work done. Okay, I mean, that's good. If you have those kinds of opportunities, certainly avail yourselves of them, but it's not a good strategy over time, because that kind of binging where you work hard and then you can't get back to it for 2 more weeks. That's hard to stay on task. Because your head gets, you get away from it, you come back to it, you have to do a bunch more reading to get back into it. You lose your momentum essentially. So it's good to just keep that momentum going with just regular work times. And you're going to have to carve out some work times and keep them, right? Now I know things happen, things you can't always keep it, but you should try to keep it more than you don't. Because like I said about life, if you just kind of let life get in the way, well, I can't do it because I have to take somebody to that. You'll never get anything done because life will always get in the way. And what I'm trying to say is kind of don't use that as kind of a go-to excuse. It does happen once in a while, granted, and that's fine. But try to keep those regular, work times. All right, staying focused and alignment. This is a problem as you get, you kind of get into things a little bit, you get moving, you get some momentum. Topic drift, it happens, or misalignment. We see this a lot. What you said here about your purpose doesn't align with what you said back in chapter 1 about your purpose, right? So that kind of a misalignment will be a cause for concern for your professors, and they'll call you out on it usually. Topic drift, sometimes what I call like associative rabbit holes, there's a lot of little rabbit holes you can go down because a lot of the, these ideas and these topics are complex, right? So it looks like something is related to your topic, and it might be, but is it related to what you're studying? That's the question you want to keep in front of you all the time. So it's easy to kind of go down these little side tracks, right? And the next thing you know, you're over here somewhere and you don't know how you got here and how do I get back. So what I like to do is pull out your research problem. Once you have your research problem, your research questions and your purpose nailed down, and those should come pretty early. Those are really the spine of your study, and those are really the things that represent the fundamental parts that represent the alignment. Obviously, the other material, like the context around it, is important to the alignment too, but these are the things that really need to be aligned, and things can kind of spin off of these. The research problem, the research questions, and the purpose should be in alignment. Now, every time you mention your research questions and your purpose, you can restate those verbatim, but not other content, but just those, because they don't change. So what I like to do, and this kind of gets to something I'm going to say later, is if you have 2 monitors, and even if you don't have 2 monitors, pull your research questions out, pull your RQs out, and pull your purpose out. Pull your research problem out, your research questions and your purpose, and just put them in a separate document by themselves. So when you and it's just there, you have it out when you're working. When you need to refer back to it, you don't have to go searching back for your research questions. You just have them there, and you can pull them up and say, oh yeah, okay, that's what I'm doing, right? Just so as a reminder to you, and that will help you stay focused and help you kind of avoid that drift. So again, something may be related to what you're doing, but it's not really what you're doing. So sometimes, you need to ask yourself that question: does this affect what I'm doing? Okay. Working productively with your chair. I mean, I put it in here because it's an important working relationship. And especially for your dissertation, is the most important working relationship you're going to have. You're going to have committee members, but it's your chair you're going to be working with mostly. you just want to be professional, be respectful, be consistent. Um, right. I mean, let's see what I have. It's really about kind of developing a working relationship with your chair, right? And then that comes through with the communication, right? That's why I'm saying be professional, respectful, and consistent. You want to establish a good working relationship with your chair. Also, don't avoid contact with your chair because you feel intimidated by them. I get this a lot. People have said their chairs intimidate them. They feel intimidated. And so they don't want to talk to them, or they avoid contact, or no, I haven't talked to them because they really scare me. Or they're, let me say this: I understand that, right? Because there's a power difference. Your student, their professor, they're your chair. Again, you're the learner. They have more knowledge only because they've been in the field longer. So I get that. I get the feeling. I get the power differential. But you shouldn't, even if you feel intimidated by your chair, just remember that there is that kind of experience and that power differential, right? And that's just part of it, and that's okay. But usually chairs will, most of the time, they're trying to be helpful. Sometimes they can come across as intimidating or short. And sometimes that may be true, or sometimes it may be your perception. But the bottom line is you shouldn't avoid your chair. I mean, that's the person you need to turn things into. That's the person you need to talk to. That's the person who is going to green light things for you. So the quickest way to get to the place where you're not writing your dissertation anymore is to avoid your chair, right? So even if they're intimidating, I mean, just, you're gonna have to kind of find a way to deal with that, or just soften that, or maybe even talk to them, because you have to work with them. Keep your chair in the loop about your plans and plan changes, right? Again, try to stick with, time management, so you don't have to come to your chair often and say, hey, whoops, I don't have that to hand, I didn't meet this deadline. That happens. It happens periodically. And if it happens once in a while, that's fine. But you want that to be the exception rather than the rule, right? So keep your chair in the loop about your plans. Even if your plans change or you can't make something, still keep them in the loop. They like to know that you're engaged, right? They like to know that you're engaged with the project. It doesn't mean bugging them all the time, but it just means kind of keeping them in the loop. Also know that chairs are different, right? They're people. They have their roles, their responsibilities, but they differ. So where some chairs are very hands-on and very helpful, other chairs may be less hands-on and less helpful. That's just kind of something that is. But the onus is really still on you as the learner to be responsible for your own progress. All right. So if you kind of blow your chair off enough times, or, don't meet your deadlines enough times, they're going to kind of check out, because they see you as, they're going to kind of follow your lead. They see you as checking out. So again, the kind of responsibility is still on you to kind of take the initiative. That's why you don't want to kind of drop out of contact with the chair or anything. And if you have real problems with your chair, like they're just not helping you, or you just can't get along with them, or there's something that makes it very difficult to do your work. I mean, that happens occasionally. You can go, you can talk to somebody about that, usually it's the department head or something, but do that in very, extreme circumstances. And yeah, I don't recommend that unless there's a real necessity to. Okay. Let's see, perseverance and process. Understand that the dissertation is a recursive process. And what does recursive mean? Recursive means that things can kind of loop around and come back, right? So you may think your chair may look at chapter 1 and go, okay, this looks pretty good. I want you to move on to chapter 2. Okay, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that chapter 1 is done and approved and everything's good. I mean, it may mean that it's good enough for now. We're going to move on to chapter 2, and he's going to let you, proceed, which may mean too that you're going to have to come back to it and do some more work on it, or he's going to require, or the committee, other members of the committee may. So don't be surprised if that happens. It's a recursive process where you even may, you may have to go back to certain sections and or certain chapters and not redo them, but maybe, okay, you said this in this later chapter, you may want to revise this in your earlier chapters to align with this. It could be just tweaks, but it is a recursive process. It's not just a step like from 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to the end. It can things can get kind of mixed around and be recursive. And this goes along with understanding the process of submission and feedback, right? Some folks think that, they're going to hand it in once and you can get it right on the first time or close to right. And then, you'll be good to go and you're going to move on to the next part. It really doesn't work like that. I mean, the comments are part of the process. You're going to hand it in. You're going to submit, your chair is going to look at it. They're going to give you comments. You're going to hand it back. You address the comments or do your best you can. Talk to them if you need to. If you don't understand the comments, they're going to look at them again. And it's not going to be, okay, you did all this, you're good to go. It's probably going to be more comments. And that's just part of the process. That's part of the learning process. I mean, you're learning from these comments. You're also learning what to do specifically in the document to move it forward. So that process may take a little time. It depends on how well, you do the things they're asking for. But I just want you to to understand that it's usually not this kind of simple thing of handing it in. It gets checked off and it moves right along. Okay, the role and purpose of comments, I talked about that. Sometimes in the process, I mean, you get feeling overwhelmed, right? Because there's a lot to do. There's a lot of different, not only different kind of submittables. Your chapter 1 is going to be different than your chapter 2, which is going to be different than your chapter 3. There's different skills and different tasks involved, right? Your chapter 2 is all about synthesizing the literature. That's a huge task, to make an argument for your study. Chapter 3 is all about putting the methods together, and that involves different different things that you have to consider. So if you feel overwhelmed, I mean, just like anything, compartmentalize and prioritize, right? Take one thing at a time, one section at a time, maybe one chapter at a time, and prioritize, which one needs to be done first, or what's more important to do first. So, when you feel like things are kind of swimming around and you don't know what to do next, compartmentalize, prioritize. Reasonable turnaround times. I don't know, schools and chairs are different, but if turnaround times become an issue, like you're waiting a month and you just get this minimal feedback, I mean, that's kind of a problem. That's something you might want to bring up with your chair to expect some reasonable turnaround times. And I don't know what's reasonable for professors, 2 weeks, maybe something like that. You can't expect it in a couple days. They do have other things to do. They do have other students. Also, when you hand things in, I want to re-emphasize or emphasize getting as much correct as you can. There's a lot of things that are in your control and there's some things that are out of your control, right? So those things that are in your control, get as many things accurate or correct as you can, right? So that involves kind of the formatting of your document, grammar and punctuation and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that we all know everything about grammar and punctuation. That's not my point. But if you know something's a problem, or it just doesn't sound right, or that's not the word you want, or that's wrong, don't submit it, just change it, make it as good as you can. Or if you're not sure if this word needs an apostrophe, I really don't know if it needs an apostrophe or not. So I'm just going to leave it. No, I mean, we literally live in an age where information is at our fingertips, right? So if you don't know if this needs something needs an apostrophe or not, just look it up. It takes about 30 seconds. So the point is, the things that you can get right that are in your control, get as many things right as you can. That helps when it goes to your chair and your committee, because they'll see fewer mistakes rather than more. It also, it's psychological in their minds. If they see somebody who's kind of, hands in something that's sloppy, or they didn't really obviously they didn't take the time to clean up the sentence, or they just left the formatting in some kind of bizarre fashion, that kind of sends a message to them, like you don't really take the work seriously, or you're kind of being, haphazard about it or something. So it does set a, it has a psychological component to it. So anyway, just try to get things in as best shape as you can before you submit. And again, that doesn't mean they have to be perfect, doesn't mean you have to know everything, but kind of avoid things that are kind of glaring, any kind of glaring mistakes or glaring formatting errors. Just get those down. Okay, stress. Stress is everywhere, right? The dissertation is a major stressor. There's just no question about that. I mean, it comes with financial stress. It comes with, stress of getting it done. It comes with stress. What am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing. Why did I do this? I mean, there's all kinds of things. And don't underestimate the effects of stress, not only on your progress of your dissertation, but on yourself. So one way to do the stress is by staying engaged with your study, right? By staying engaged, and that's also involves regular work times, regular communications with your chairs, a timeline. You can avoid the stress of, if you get checked out for a couple months or something, for whatever reason. There's no stress directly related to the dissertation as far as I have to sit down and write it, but there's a larger stress lurking in the background. It's like, oh man, I've sat around and didn't do anything, or I had something to do, but I didn't do anything on my dissertation for 2 months. Now I got to get back to it. Oh, what's my chair going to say? Oh, what kind of shape is it going to be in? I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. So that kind of big stress will crop up if you kind of, don't stay on top of it. And also, like anything else, just find stress relief strategies that work for you. Sometimes it's going to the gym or running or walking, even just meditating, taking some time out for yourself, whatever works, but do it, treat yourself, just to help you with the dissertation stress and any other stress. And a few just kind of pro tips that help me out, and it seemed that people struggle with. Keep track of your references for your study and for your lit review too. Keep track of your references early and throughout the process, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to leave. You haven't been paying attention to your references. Now you're done, and you got to go back through the whole thing and see what you've used and what you didn't use, because your references section should only include references that you actually used in your document, right? So if you didn't use something, it shouldn't appear in your references. But people will start the references and they'll start adding to it, but then they take stuff out and they change it. And if you don't keep up with those changes, you can have a big job at the end. So there are reference managers or software, and I'm going to put it through a few in the chat box here. Let's see. Zotero is one. EndNote is another. These are reference management systems. that you can use. They help you keep track of your references. And if you don't use one of those, that's fine. Just as you get sources, just make a running list, right? And some possible sources to use, and have that list, and have another list of sources that I've actually used. Because you might look at a source and you might consider using it, but then you don't, or you did use it, or you took it out, or you're going to constantly be adding sources, right? So as you add those to your list, and just keep up with that list, because it will get to be a real headache later if you have to try to figure all that out later. Okay, use 2 monitors if you can. I mean, I know sometimes people can't for whatever reason, but using 2 monitors is really a game changer. It really is. I mean, you can have one document on one screen that you're working on, and you can have another document on the other screen, be it a dissertation you're using as an example, or just an article that you're referring to. You'd have that on the other screen. And I know you can do, split screens and stuff, but this gives you 2 actual, the viewing width of, 2 monitors. It's very helpful. And also, when I was talking about staying aligned, staying on track with your study, keeping the alignment, I always pull out the research questions and the purpose and the research problem, put them in the document over there, the other document that I'm not working on, so I can just pull it up if I need to be reminded. But use of 2 monitors, it can really help. Learn your tools. This is about things like Word, Zoom, any kind of tools that you may be using to write your dissertation, to communicate with your chair, and to communicate with others. That doesn't mean you need to know everything about Word. I mean, nobody could ever learn everything about Word. It's too complicated. But it just means that while you're writing a dissertation and doing all these tasks and have all these responsibilities, it's also hard to kind of like figure out your tools, so you have kind of 2 learning curves right at the same time. So it's good sometimes to just kind of sit down with your tools by themselves once in a while, like Zoom, figure out how to use Zoom, figure out a little bit about Word. You're having trouble transferring files or something. We'll just sit down sometime and learn a little bit about that. So when you really have to go to do it and you're kind of in a rush, maybe you don't hit this learning curve and have to go look it up anyway. And when I say learn about these things, again, Google it. Everything's that there's so much information at your fingertips. I mean, I'm from a generation that's not natural to me, right? I have to continually remind myself, I ask myself a question and then I remember I'm sitting at a computer. Right. So anything I can think of, I can probably find out something on it. The search function is your friend. The search function in your in Word, right? Because sometimes I'll be talking with somebody about their study and they'll go, okay, in this section where I say talk about this, and they're scrolling, hold on a minute, I'll get there, scrolling, 30 pages later, scroll. You don't have to do that. You search a key term and the term pops right up, right? So this goes to learn your tools, learn how to use a search function. It helps kind of tame your document a bit, where you don't feel at the mercy of like having, you get up to 100 pages, over 100 pages, you can't kind of just randomly kind of search for something. So that's where your search function helps you. Google Scholar is your friend in a couple ways. I know some professors will say, Google Scholar, go to the academic library, which is true, but most academic libraries include Google Scholar now. So, and there's a reason for that. It's a good place to search for peer-reviewed articles, scholarly sources. I wouldn't use it exclusive of your academic library. Your academic library is still going to be the place to go for all the, the databases, the professional databases and search tools. But Google Scholar is helpful. It's helpful for quick searches. It's also helpful for, it has a cited by option. So if you pull up an article and it's like, oh, I like this one, this is going to be really good. You can, there's a, let's see if I can pull it up here now while we're here. So Google Scholar. Right. Let's say, let's look for something on, I don't know. Transformational leadership. Okay. You can, customize things by page range. Let's just do newer ones. Let's just say we found this one. This looks like something you might want to use. But if you see here, it says cited by, right? 56. So if you really like this and this is really good, it's really germane to what you're doing, you can go to the cited by function and see if, who has cited it, to see if there's further articles that are good for what you're doing. But this is also helpful if, say, your chair says, oh, this citation's out of date. It's 2015. You need something newer. Okay. Well, you put it in, you throw that one in, whatever they were talking about. It's 2015. And then once you use the cited by, you can find more recent articles that have cited that one. And so you may be able to kind of substitute the older article with the newer one that you can find by the cited by function. Okay. So Google Scholar, helpful. Again, you don't want to, your whole search doesn't want to be predicated on Google Scholar, but it is helpful. Use your resources and support. That just means things like any resources that your school might have, any resources that company, like for instance, we have free resources, use those. Schools, universities also usually have writing centers. Those are a resource. There are reference librarians. People often don't think of reference librarian as resources, but they're excellent resources, especially when you get to the literature review. It's part of their job to help students, so don't feel like you're bugging them. A lot of universities online, you can meet with a reference librarian online. Do you need help? Ask me something. Those kind of boxes that pop up. They're really helpful. Example dissertations are good resources too. Sometimes your chair will give you, or you can ask your chair, hey, do you have an example dissertation that you can show me that you'd like me to follow? Even ProQuest, you can get to ProQuest through any academic library. They publish the dissertations. So usually it's helpful to find a dissertation in your area from your school, just to see what it looks like, what people have done for some of these sections and these chapters. So any kind of resources and support that you can avail yourself of. There's a lot of free stuff out there, and I know there's a lot of, and there's also services at cost, but use your resources, use your support. The last one, if you don't know something, look it up, right? Again, this goes back to my point that we are in an age where almost anything we need to know is certainly about the dissertation process or about, studies. It's at our fingertips, literally, right? I mean, we can go and search it. What does triangulation mean? Your chair said, well, you're going to have to triangulate these data sources. What does that mean? Well, you don't have to sit there and scratch your head. You can look it up. So just a reminder, again, that's a reminder to me because I'm of a generation where that doesn't come natural for me. That doesn't come natural for me to go to the computer. In fact, what was natural for me a while ago was to go to the yellow pages, but that's a different time. But yes, so take advantage of that, right? Do some research on your own if you need to. Okay, and this is, who we are, what we offer, and some contact information for us. So if you think you'd like to just talk to somebody about what we offer and see if that's right for you, of course, no obligation, feel free. And you just kind of browse around our website too. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions. If anybody has questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those. You can put them in the question and answer box or even in the chat box. I don't want the bar here, I want that. Okay. No questions? Everybody's good with the dissertation? Okay, if there's no questions, before I let you go, I just wanted to remind you that we do offer webinars on more specific kind of nuts and bolts, like chapters, what goes into the chapters, the expectations and the features of the chapter. So this was kind of a more general kind of, getting through, kind of persevering things to do to get done. Okay, so if there's no questions, then I'm going to let you go. Wish you a great rest of your day. And again, just check out what else we have to offer to see if it's right for you. All right. Thank you very much. Take care.